celebratory remarks to congratulate Canterbury-based Books to Africa for what has been achieved in 6 short, productive years. This introduction prefaces my reading the poem Emergency Outfit. On the 22nd of June 2019, coincidentally, the second National Windrush Day, Books to Africa organized a wonderful day of celebrations with their dedicated team of helpers and supporters. Within the short time span of 6 years, more than 1 million books had been donated, parceled, dispatched, and distributed to institutions the length and breadth of the African continent. On that day, I was asked to contribute a poem, and the one I chose to read, Emergency Outfit, celebrates the generosity, spontaneous, unrecorded, unacknowledged, that so often defines the spirit of Mother Africa. On so many occasions, I have been a grateful, sometimes astonished recipient of that bountiful generosity. For too many centuries, too many countries, especially old Blighty, have seized and exploited Africa's peoples and natural resources on a scale of stupendous, astronomical proportions. With this in mind, the need to replace exploitation by cooperation, respect, reciprocity is paramount. The habit of seizing and appropriating, or more accurately misappropriating too much for too long, must stop. Consider the grotesque history of the petroleum industry in Nigeria. To redress this grotesque present and historical imbalance, Britain and her peoples need to invest in mutually beneficial initiatives with African nations, practical, supportive initiatives, helping those who have contributed enormously to the economy and development of these islands, indeed, disproportionately too much. Inspiring projects and initiatives such as Books to Africa are vital expressions of ethical internationalism, caritas in the sense of useful kindness that pays practical attention to the urgent needs of sisters and brothers with whom our greedy connections have all too often been selfishly one-sided. To diffuse the man-made tensions wounding and scarring our precious planet, a new kind of inclusive politics is essential. In this challenging creative endeavor, organizations such as Books to Africa have a vital role to play. For in helping others, we simultaneously do good to ourselves in a healing process, enriching both donor as well as recipient. Because of having lived and worked on the magnificent, troubled African continent, first in Zambia, then Nigeria, my understanding of what it is to be woman is informed both by my European heritage and the African cultures I have had the opportunity to explore, listening to, learning from, exchanging views and perspectives with the women who became both my students and my teachers, and from whom I have learned so much about the woman-centered, empowering organizations and traditions which underpin the social infrastructure of many communities. When we listen and learn from other cultures, we deepen our understanding of our own. For as the South African poet and novelist Sipho Sepamla insisted, the root is one. So, without more ado, let me take you on an adventure that took me on a circuitous, circular journey, starting in Port Harcourt, River State, Nigeria, taking me west to Lagos, on to Accra, Ghana's capital, then to Cape Coast, my university conference destination, where my arrival was transformed into an unexpected premature departure, taking me back to Accra, then Lagos, and after a brief overnight stay in that frenetic, dynamic metropolis, back to Accra and Cape Coast, where I was at last belatedly able to participate in a lively conference and present the paper I had written for that occasion. So now I'm going to read Emergency Outfit. Emergency Outfit for Grace Sibedu, who made it, and the guardian angel elder who made its making possible. The hotel receptionist, elderly benign, sustained a refrain of regretful sighs and polite exclamations of commiseration at the traveller's tale of luggage, conference papers, toiletries, and clothes conjured into mystery disappearance between departure from Lagos and arrival in Ghanaian capital. Deprived of her precious load, she had retraced her flight path, searched in vain the subterranean recesses of Murtala Mohammed Airport, and directed in defeat, found herself lodged in a Maryland hotel for the night before early morning return flight to Accra and the Cape Coast Conference, innocent cause of her predicament and woes. There she stood, weary-limbed, frustrated, stale with the sweat of travel and tension, before the fatherly figure performing his role on duty at reception, a sympathetic, lean-limbed Baba, bestowing on her still youthful exasperation the calming benediction of his plea for patience. Even the pleasure of cleansing ablutions was peevishly prohibited and denied, for some evil genie of unknown origin had sentenced her to indefinite imprisonment in clothes pungent with the odor of tedious travel in tropical clime. To him, it mattered not that she was Oyibo, in appearance affluent white. To this sympathetic, attentive elder, she was a daughter, troubled, tired, exhausted, whom the gods had placed in his patient hands, charged to effect a measure of relief, lower her level of acute distress. Investigation soon revealed, she worked in Port Harcourt, the city where one of his sisters lived. There could be no doubt. Spirits were at work. Encouraged by ancestral voices from home, they had guided her steps for the purpose of testing the measure of his devotion to time-honored customs and traditions. In Lagos City, where poverty and greed could transform newcomers with indecent speed into career criminals, flashy fearsome, or weary waged workers paid a pittance. And so he turned his back on fatigue, postponing his well-deserved rest and respite at the end of a long day's routine shift, to lead her with expert smiling calm through the early evening frenzied assortment of wheeled machines clogging manic Lagos motorways with spluttering sporadic toxic speed, before guiding her, chaperoning her along dusty sun-soaked back streets, until, triumphant, he stood with his charge in front of the familiar cramped sewing shed of his kinswoman, standing alone outside, locking her door, preparing to go home, to whom he made urgent, eloquent request on behalf of the young woman at his side, reassuring her in turn that all would go well. For now, I leave you in Madame Sebedu's clever, capable hands, willing and ready to create for you an emergency outfit, and so erase those unbecoming frowns from a face I hope to see wearing smiles when I return in a couple of hours. Madame, empathetic, sympathizing, unlocked her door, flung open the shutters, installed her customer guest, comfortable inside, let her choose some fabric, while she suggested a style, simple but elegant, for one soon to take to the skyways again. Curious, some friends stopped to inquire why her fluorescent light burned bright at this hour, taking time to sit and chat for a while with encouraging words for the guest from afar. Not long after, one of Grace's friends had remarked, "Our guest surely requires more than kind words to re-energize for the challenges ahead." The shed became a bustling, buzzing center of female solidarity with a stranger. One mother sent her daughter to fetch refreshing soft drinks from her well-stocked fridge. Another lady arrived with warm chin-chin, crisp and crunchy in enameled dish. A young girl, smiling shyly, curtsied, offered a bowl of warm water, soap and towel for the guest to wash her hands, ready to taste and enjoy the fried fish, still warm, she had carried from home on her mother's instructions, telling the traveller, "You go enjoy my mama's cooking well." "Yes, indeed," another woman chimed in. "Among us, Mrs. Agbara is famed for her kindness and culinary skills." And all the while the guest ate and talked, in the background the vital work rarely stopped, as the sewing machine rattled and hummed, obedient to the magic of fingertips, long tutored in deft motion and touch. While trying on the outfit in the making, one of Grace's visitors laughingly declared herself newly rich in feminine underwear after her sister's shopping spree in the UK, then somewhat abruptly disappeared, soon to return, smiling triumphant, an Igbo fairy goddess mother working her magic with satisfaction, placing a pair of brassiere and underpants discreetly wrapped on the young woman's lap. They go size you well, of this I am sure," she announced to the recipient, momentarily speechless in wonder, surrounded by the practical kindness of women who embraced her, accepted her as just another sister, mother, daughter. A tap on the shutter brought Grace to the door, where her husband, anxious to learn the reason for his wife's prolonged absence from home, soon left satisfied, smiling support, since his wife's skills, he readily agreed, were needed that evening as never before. To honor his wife, her customer and friends, he sent a crate full of soft drinks to slake their thirst and speed up the work. With bubu, skirt and head tie neatly pressed and parceled ready for departure, her guardian angel soon reappeared at her side, ready to guide and escort her through the dazzle and din of Lagos' frenetic nightlife once again. Taking note of the welcoming smiles on his charge's face, her guide concluded she had shared a good part of her earlier malaise, melancholy, enervating gloom, the very transformation he had been hoping for. And seeing the amity and pleasing warmth between Grace and her customer guest, knew that the foreigner had not been decashed, knew payment made for services rendered, had been generous fare, profiteering free. Indeed, Grace had charged her crisis customer a modest sum, for in this venture her chief satisfaction was a job well done, knowing her skills, her creativity, had helped a weary, despondent traveller solve a problem, overcome a difficulty. And if news of this evening's activities travelled fast along familiar gossip trails, her reputation enhanced could, in addition, bring new customers knocking on her door, Grace mused, smiling quietly to herself, and turning to her customer, her words teasing brought laughter to a sweet leave-taking. I never knew I could sew like the wind. This evening is one we will never forget. And so God bless you on your way. May your conference go well. And when they ask you in Cape Coast just how you managed a complete change of clothing, please tell them your emergency outfit is the product of Grace's emergency sewing. And let us remember, without Uncle's help, quick thinking, prompt action, you would not be here. We would never have met. No emergency outfit for you to wear. The fatherly elder was quick to respond. My daughters, the actions I took to help a stranger in need should be considered unexceptional, simply good breeding, a matter of applying best practice according to our ancient traditions and customs, traditions we have been privileged to share with our British guest and visitor, customs and traditions too often ignored in the wild struggle for money and power. As the visitor listened, lines from a poem deep buried, long forgotten, rose insistent to the surface, for it seemed to her that William Blake and this wise elder sang in harmony for common humanity. Can I see another's woe and not be in sorrow too? Can I see another's grief and not seek for kind relief? On her return to the Maryland Hotel, the guest expressed gratitude to her guide, his reply prompting blushes and laughter on that unforgettable Lagos night. Eh, my dear, how could I stand idly by, seeing nasty frowns spoiling a pretty face? Your smiles restored are my recompense. So let me give you just a few notes in case there were a few words that were not clear, and also a little more background information. It was during the period when I was head of a very lively English department at the River State College of Education that I attended a conference at the University of Cape Coast, Ghana, where I presented a paper on pedagogical politics in Ngugi wa Thiong'o's novel Petals of Blood, published in the Journal of the Literary Society of Nigeria, number 1, 1981. Despite unforeseen complications, eventually all went well, and as I hoped, my paper did indeed stimulate energetic debate. Oyibo is an Igbo word meaning a white person. Chin chin, these are small crunchy chunks of fried sweetened dough enjoyed as a snack. And if you want the recipe, go to Nigerian Cookbook, authors H.O. Antonio and M. Isun, published by Macmillan, 1988. And on page 179, you'll get the recipe. Now, the word curtsied, and this is important. Here, the young girl who is offering the fish to me, curtsies, not because she's in the presence of an Oyibo, but to show respect to an older person. Uncle's help. Grace refers to the traveller's fatherly guardian angel as an uncle to indicate his senior status in society. In such contexts, the words uncle, aunt, auntie are frequently used to refer to age differential, again carrying the connotation of respect. The style is informal and familiar, with no reference to biological kinship ties. Grace and the guardian angel elder belong to the same ethnic group, but are not directly or closely related in a biological sense. Grace is his kinswoman in the sense that they share a cultural identity in terms of language, i.e. mother tongue, traditions, lifestyle, and regional origin. They both identify as Igbo Nigerians in their country's predominantly Yoruba-speaking commercial capital. The phrase kind relief. Dr. David Edwards, in his editorial role, reminds us that William Blake, 1757 to 1827, was, and I quote, the only great poet of the English Romantic movement who was genuinely working class. He was, I must add, highly skilled working class, and in Dr. Edwards' words, and I quote again, a very accomplished engraver both of others' work and his own original designs. And the source for the quotations, A Choice of Poets, edited by Dr. David Edwards, published by Thomas Nelson and Sons, 1999, page 49. And for the full text of William Blake's poem On Another's Sorrow, go to pages 60 and 61. Well, here I am in Greyfriars Garden, a quiet, secluded spot in Canterbury, and the filming has been made possible by a wonderful neighbour of mine, Joe Carter, who is modesty itself, and so I didn't warn him in advance that I was going to make this reference. But thank you, Joe, for your great support, and also a thanks to his housemate Janine, who typeset the poem very beautifully. And you can, on my website, of course, read the poem, read the notes, and listen to me present the poem, because there should be, in poetry, there should be some music, and the oral aspect is always important. So please, enjoy.